Morning of the Earth winds up one of the enduring masterpieces of Australian cinema of the 1970s and also beyond. We already discussed 1973's Crystal Voyager in the first year of AOD, actually, which is something of a follow-up to Morning. Its producer David Elphick directed Voyager as well as producing it, although the directorial credit of Morning is to the very gifted Albert Falzon. Let's read out the Wikipedias of Morning of the Earth. Morning of the Earth is a 1971 classic surf film by Albie Falzon and David Elphick. The film's soundtrack was produced by G. Wayne Thomas and included music and songs by noted Australian music acts Tamam Shud, John J. Francis, Brian Cadd, Mike Rudd, and G. Wayne Thomas. The record became the first Australian Gold soundtrack album. In October 2010, the soundtrack for Morning of the Earth was listed in the book 100 Best Australian Albums. The film portrays surfers living in spiritual harmony with nature, making their own boards and homes as they travelled in search of the perfect wave across Australia's northeast coast, Bali and Hawaii. The movie is regarded as one of the finest of its genre and noted as recording the first surfers to ride the waves at Uluwatu on the very southern tip of Bali, and so bringing Bali to the attention of surfers around the world, as well as contributing to Bali becoming a major tourist destination. Tamam Shud were recording tracks for the surf film Morning of the Earth, including their song First Things First. Their main lead singer, Lindsay Bjerre, was having voice problems, so they recorded the song using lead guitarist Tim Gaze. Music producer G. Wayne Thomas was unhappy with Gaze's vocals and asked Broderick Smith, Carson, or another Australian actor around this time, to fill in. According to Bjerre, Tamam Shud were not informed and only found out about the switch at the film's premiere. According to Smith, he had Tamam Shud's knowledge and permission. Now let's go read out some about Albie Falzon. He's an Australian filmmaker, photographer, born 1945, and publisher in the surfing subculture. Falzon grew up in the beachside suburb of Maroubra in Sydney, Australia. He did not begin surfing until the age of 14, when the Falzon family moved to the New South Wales Central Coast. He currently resides in Yungai, New South Wales. Falzon has always appreciated the power of music in his films and directed Morning of the Earth 1972, an influential surf film. The film portrays surfers living in spiritual harmony with nature, making their own boards and homes as they travel in search of the perfect wave across Australia's northeast coast, Bali and Hawaii. Falzon's inaugural feature film was the first Australian film to receive a gold record for soundtrack album sales. A passion for travel, particularly to remote and spectacular regions of the world, has been a major influence on the themes of Falzon's work. A 6-part documentary series focused on traditional festivals in Far Eastern countries such as Sri Lanka, India, Burma, Ladakh and Tibet, and has been sold in over 80 countries worldwide. And not all locations are easily accessible. The journey through Tibet to the mystical mountain of Kailas was an arduous 2 weeks journey in sub-zero temperatures. There the film crew recorded, for the very first time, the sacred Wesak festival. In 1982, Falzon directed Kumbh Mela, Same as It Ever Was, a 90-minute piece filmed in the waterways of Kashmir in India about a sadhu's pilgrimage. He approached Brian Eno in London about using some of his music as part of the soundtrack. After viewing the film, Eno commented that he'd never seen a film that was more suited as a vehicle for his work. Brian Eno and Harold Bart are both in the soundtrack, along with music from Pink Floyd and Talking Heads. He entered this film into the Cannes Film Festival with the title Crystal Voyager. Whatever. Another film, The Road to Timbuktu, followed a path from Casablanca across the searing Sahara Desert to Timbuktu. Falzon's 12-part series, Festivals of the World, has sold to over 80 countries. He's also directed 2 long-version music videos for Chris Blackwell, founder of Island Records, and was DOP on Women of Spirit, a 1-hour television program filmed in India, NY, and London. He has written a series of children's programs and has completed a screenplay for a feature film tentatively titled The Dreamtime. He recently filmed 2 surfing programs and co-produced a 1-hour program on Nicholas Roerich, a Russian artist who painted extraordinarily beautiful spiritual painting of the Himalayas at the beginning of the 20th century. Globus, The Meaning of Light, is a recently completed film production with Jeff Hornbaker. Falzon's career in filmmaking was a natural progression from international still photography, and later combined with magazine publishing in Australia, Israel, and the island of Bali in Indonesia. In 1970, he was co-founder and publisher of the surfing newspaper Tracks with David Elphick and John Witzig. He is presently working on 3 books: Essence, a pictorial on flowers and exotic images from his world travels; Surf Art, a portfolio on the work of 10 world-renowned surf photographers; Journey to the Wesak Valley, a diary of his travels to the sacred Wesak Valley near Mount Kailash in western Tibet. Now for David Elphick. David Elphick, born in 1944, is an Australian film and television writer, director, producer and occasional actor. He's known for his association with writer-director Philip Noyce, with whom he has collaborated on films including Newsfront 1978 and Rabbit-Proof Fence 2002. Elphick began his film career as the producer of the 1971 surf movie Morning of the Earth, directed by Albie Falzon. In 1973, Elphick collaborated with surfer, writer, and cinematographer George Greenough as producer-director of Crystal Voyager. This became one of the most successful Australian surf movies ever made, grossing over $100,000 on its first release, followed by a 6-month run in London, where it ran on a double bill with René Laloux's Fantastic Planet, grossed over UK £100,000. Elphick was co-writer with Philippe Mora for the original story for the acclaimed docudrama Newsfront, which he also had a small role, and he also had a minor role as a projectionist in Albie Tom's Palm Beach 1978. Now, we're going to talk about that one day. Albie Tom's maybe the genius of the Australian film history. In addition to writing, Elphick has also worked as a director, making his directorial debut in 1969. Directing credits include Crystal Voyager 1973, Love in Limbo 1993, and No Worries 1994. Elphick's credits as a producer include the pop film Starstruck 1982, Undercover 1983, the comedy Amor Ruro 1985, the drama Black Rock 1997, and the multi-award winning Rabbit-Proof Fence 2002. He also produced Around the World in 80 Ways, released in 1988, which was directed by his friend Stephen McLean. And anyway, I'll just read out some of what I've written here. Morning of the Earth is passionately visual, attempting to unionize human activity, natural marvels, and transcendent montage to distill the utopian pathos of the surf subcultures, and how they manifested in Australia, especially during that famous countercultural epoch. They say that the countercultural phase of Australia occurred more during the early 70s than the late 60s, as it had in the US and UK, let's say. We're always apparently a few years behind the rest of the English-speaking nations, except New Zealand. They're a month behind us even, still. Silly laundry balls. Who uses a bloody knife to sesh anyway? Spellbinding cinematography, enchanting music, emanating joyousness, and compellingly wholesome. Morning of the Earth is one of the most gorgeous, proud accomplishments in the history of all of Australian art, or so I will claim here.